Welcome to Arts for the Health of It, a podcast where you will discover creative ways to improve your health and well-being. Someone may have told you that art isn't for you, but they were wrong. Anyone can create arts for the health of it. No talent or experience necessary.
I'm just a little songbird, try to fly my way homeward with the melody, and I make the beat. Don't know where it'll take me, cause when I'm in the dark of night, I sing my way back to the light. Come along with me and your heart will see that a song changes everything. Oh, oh, oh.
This interview made me realize how much I have missed and how big of a part it was to my own happiness, like live theater and live concerts and like, oh my God, this is so awful. How much I've missed it.
Yeah. It like is this ache. And I it's like in one sense, I'm grateful for this last year because we're fortunate to be in a society where there really is an abundance of arts. And I think it's easy to take it for granted because it's so prevalent. You know, we have beautiful structures and we have, TV, like that's art, shows and movies and music, and it's all been so available. And then this last year to just have it completely cut off, it really reveals that like ache, and I think it's an ache for each other. I think we ache for that connection. And like Bradley said in the interview, when we see our stories reflected back to us in art, we see the communal response to the recognition of, oh yeah, I see myself in that. We're all going to laugh together, that you feel less alone. And we're communal animals. And if we don't have regular sensory input that reinforces that we're not alone, it's, humans shrivel up and give up and die. And, it's so essential. And the arts are a powerful way that we come together. And
he's so right. You talk like you go, like I try to go to as many opening nights as possible in our local theater community here in San Antonio, because just the excitement, and you see your friends and you hear the music, like you get to be the first one to hear the music before the next night, and like all of that. And I was the kid who grew up in the Midwest who had no access to live
accessible.
Theater. Yeah, it wasn't accessible at all. And I remember the first show I was ever in after I realized like I want to be an entertainer was Our Town, and I drove 45 minutes every day for rehearsal to play a dead person on a slab that had 0 lines, because obviously I was really good, but that's what I was cast as, the dead person. It was like dead person number 2. That was it. But just even being in that theater and being around the people who like watching everybody do it, watching the lighting designers figured it out. Like, I just remember loving every moment of it, even though I just laid there and got yelled at because you could see my stomach moving because I was breathing. And, I've never been lucky enough to see a show on Broadway. I've never been to New York before, even though I lived 3 hours from there. But it's also like you don't have to go to Broadway to see amazing shows.
Yeah, there's tons of amazing regional theater, which, and to like back up a little bit, I actually got to meet Bradley.
Right, who's on the show today?
Bradley Dean is with us today. He is one of the cast members on the Broadway version of Phantom of the Opera. And we met 6 or 7 years ago. We did a show together in Fort Worth. We did Camelot together, and he was Arthur and I was one of like the ladies in waiting or whatever for one of your, anyway. And he was just so great to work with, and he has done lots of stuff on Broadway and regionally. And so when I heard that Broadway was going back, and I saw his post that Phantom was going back, we reached out to him to see if he would come in and talk about the impact that the arts have on him personally, what this last year has been like on performing artists, Broadway specifically, and just what he's looking forward to going back, and how important theater is for our society and our culture and our communities.
Yeah, and what he missed while he was away from it. I mean, that's a really long time to be away from something that you love. It's not even like it's your job. It's not you're punching a clock, sitting at a desk. Like, what it's like to have to like be forced to walk away from something that means so much to you. Oh,
I know.
Stanzi and I cried through most of it. Because I think it was a little mini therapy session for us.
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh.
We both have this theater background, and so there's, to talk about how much we miss live theater. It hit a nerve. It hit a nerve, Richard.
Yes. So we don't want to waste any more time, so you can cry as well. Take a listen or a watch to our chat with Bradley Dean. So we are here with Bradley Dean, Broadway superstar, I would say. I'll throw that out there. That's right.
Wow.
I said it, and I can't take it back because we're recording.
Yeah, well, you can't say it if it's not true, I guess. So.
You can't. I am so excited to talk for the next half an hour or so about Broadway coming back.
Yay!
And I don't know how you feel about it, Bradley, and I think I can tell how Stanzi feels about it. But as someone who grew up in the Midwest, who had no access to live theater, and then suddenly fell in love with the Tony Awards, and I would watch all of the Broadway shows on the Rosie O'Donnell show, I was like, that's where my love of entertainment came, and my like, this is what I need to do. So I want to know where you grew up and how you fell in love with it.
I grew up in a little town called Pottsville, Pennsylvania, which is an hour from anywhere you've probably ever heard of. The middle of like the anthracite coal region of Pennsylvania. And Pottsville had nothing going on in terms of the arts. We had no sort of theater program at the school or anything like that. But the one thing we had was we had this brilliant voice teacher who married a guy, sang professionally in New York, married a guy, settled in the hills of Pennsylvania. And she taught me to sing from when I was 13. And filled me with a love of the technique of singing. I teach now, so that's held on my whole life. So incredibly good fortune to have this brilliant woman named is Cora Gamlin in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. So I learned to sing, and that was sort of a natural kind of blending into the musical theater world. I never thought I had any, I never knew that I had any acting talent. I always knew I could sing. And then I was cast in this this one-act show. The English department of my high school decided to enter this one-act competition at the Bucks County Playhouse, and threw together this one act with a bunch of us, and I got roped into it. And at the festival, it was like high schools from like a 3-state area. They would bring professionals down from New York, and they would critique the performances. And so I remember sitting there listening to this critique, and there were these 5 like professional actors from New York who were all saying that they thought I was really good, and I was a really good actor. And at the end of the festival, there was an award ceremony, and I was sitting in this theater, and they were about to announce the award for Best Actor. And I had the thought in my head, if I win this award, I'm going to be an actor. And they called my name, and I never looked back. So that was sort of how.
So cool.
Yeah, that was how I kind of got into it. Went to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, and from there moved to New York, and hilarity ensued.
What was your first Broadway show?
Jane Eyre. I was a standby. I covered all the guys in Jane Eyre.
Comedy ensued.
2000, exactly.
Yes, when you think comedy, you think that.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and yeah, I've done 12 Broadway shows, so I've been incredibly fortunate. And yeah, we start rehearsal September 27th for Phantom, and open October 22nd, and
Wow.
God willing, and the plague don't rise,
Oh my
there
God.
will be.
We'll be here. What was the first show you ever saw?
First show I ever saw. The first show that I saw that made me kind of think I want to do this was a production of Godspell at the Allenbury Playhouse in Pennsylvania when I was like a freshman in high school. Guy who was played the Jesus role was so fantastic, and I was like, I want to be that guy. So that was the first live show I saw that made me want to do it. And then the part that like the moment that I that hooked me was the filmed version of Sunday in the Park with George.
Oh yeah.
With the end of Act 1 when Mandy turns downstage and goes, Sunday! I was like,
Oh, that's it.
that's what I want to do. I want to open my mouth as wide as I can and sing Sunday facing downstage.
So have you been able to do either of those things? Either the Jesus role and Godspell, or
I did that.
Sunday...
I did that. I was going to do George at St. Louis Rep. I was also cast in the Broadway Evita, which was supposed to start rehearsal on Monday. The St. Louis Rep production ended on Sunday. It was like perfect. And then right before I was supposed to go, Evita said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to start a week early." So
wow.
I didn't get to go to St. Louis and play that role, unfortunately.
One day, I'm sure.
There's still time.
I don't know. Break out the Just for Men, maybe at like a Muni or like big amphitheater.
They're far away. I was grateful that so my role, like my first show where I was like, I want to do that, was seeing Les Mis, and I don't know, I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be Cosette, not like little Cosette. I wanted to be big Cosette, and I got to do that role just in the nick of time. I probably am too old to do it now, but it's always fun to like get to do bucket list roles or roles that really influenced you as a young artist. So
Sweeney Todd is my big one. Sweeney Todd is the one that I still have to do. I covered it at with the New York Philharmonic, and got to actually do a run through with Emma Thompson, who was playing Mrs. Lovett.
Wow! Oh my gosh!
But did not get to do it in front of an audience yet.
Yet on there.
I love how you said "yet" at the end. That was a good one. What were you doing? Oh, I don't know, a year ago, and a little over a year ago. What were you up to? And where do you remember that moment, or where you were the moment that they were like?
Yes, I was on the onstage opera box, listening to "Think of Me" in Phantom of the Opera, and Raoul came on stage, came into the opera box, and he whispered to us, "We're closing today." This is March 12th. So we were the last show to play Broadway, because we were the only ones that had Thursday matinee. And so, they closed us down. And originally they were telling us, like, I think it was like May 28th. March 28th we were going back, something like that.
Just a quick break. We'll get it over with.
A quick break. Yeah. But I actually had this, like, I was walking to work that day, and I was listening to the news on my headphones, and I was on 46th and 8th, and I heard, and they announced that the NBA had canceled their season. And I remember just stopping there, and like my body went numb, and I sort of felt like I saw the future, and I was like, we're not going back for over a year. I was like, today is the last day. and I was like, I don't know. Yeah, the NBA calling it quits. I was like, Broadway doesn't stand a chance. I mean, you know. And everybody else sort of was like, well, see you in a couple weeks. I'm like,
You're like, no.
no, and everyone thought I was crazy.
You were a prophet.
I was like given these answers suddenly. It was great.
I've heard a couple people say that it was the NBA closing or shutting down or whatever, that they were like, oh, that's how I knew it was real, when the NBA was doing it. Like, and people who don't even like follow sports, but they were like, no, once they went home, I was like, yeah, something big is happening.
Yeah, no, it's like they don't shut down a moneymaker like that in any way lightly.
And am I right in remembering that this is really kind of the first break that Phantom has had on Broadway since it began?
I mean, there were like 2 weeks after 9/11 that Broadway closed down. But otherwise, it's been going since 1986. I mean,
wow,
it's insane. You know, and it's the future is cloudy. It's there's a million elephants in the room that we're not like. I don't hear people talking about. Not the least of which is that a show like Phantom, 80% of its ticket sales are Asian or European. So until like, it's not New Yorkers that are going to see the opera, you know. So it's until
visitors. Interesting.
Yeah, until those planes start coming. I don't know.
As far as ticket sales, what other concerns do you have? Or do you have other concerns about going back? Maybe share also maybe what you're looking forward to about going back.
I'm looking forward to the first downbeat. I think that's going to be a moment you want to be. That's a part of history that I'll be psyched to be part of it. And whatever happens after that, is out of our control. I feel confident we'll get that first downbeat. And we sold out in the first 2 hours for the first show at least. So we're gonna have a full house, and so I'm really looking forward to that. I got tickets to the opening night of Hadestown, the opening night of Pump 'Em Away, and the opening night of Ain't Too Proud. I just want to be there. I want to be.
I hope they're not all on the same night.
They're not.
Okay, they're spreading it out.
Good.
Yeah.
What have you been doing over the last year? How have you been keeping yourself busy and creative and sane? Do you live in New York now?
I do. Yeah. I purchased myself this soundproof studio, and I just set up shop. And I've been teaching virtual lessons pretty much since like April, and it was surprisingly seamless how it kind of moved from teaching in person to teaching virtually. I've grown to really love it, and yeah, I mean, it's a full-time job. I'm teaching like 30 to 40 hours a week, and
that's a lot of teaching, Bradley.
Yeah, and it's been great. I love it. I love it just as much as I do performing, and I still get to speak a creative language. I still get to affect people with something artistic, and so it's been nothing but a blessing. And yeah, I've been doing that. I went to Mexico for 3 months.
Whoa!
And taught from down there. Yeah, I wanted to be out of the country for the election, so I voted on November 1st, and I flew to Mexico, where I stayed for 3 months.
Smart. So you're probably being away from performing for any period of time. There's generally a process of kind of getting yourself back in shape and back in a good mindset. If you've been teaching all that time, it sounds like probably your voice is still in good shape, but are there other ways that you're preparing yourself to go back, or maybe that some of your castmates or other people in the Broadway community that are working to get back to performing
shape?
Well,
I haven't necessarily begun this process yet, but there will definitely have to be like a pancake fast coming
Oh
up.
no.
My character in Phantom wears what's called skeletard to the masquerade ball, which is just a unitard of a skeleton. So right now that's going to be like squeezing a sausage. So that process has to begin sooner than later. And just I've been fortunate in that I sing all day, every day. So my voice is actually in great shape. That won't be hard. I imagine like there's going to be a lot of folks that need to kind of stretch those muscles out, because that will atrophy on you, as you know, I'm sure.
Well, I think there's probably some of our listeners who may not realize the athletic nature of being a Broadway performer, of doing 8 shows a week, that even if you're not a dancing role, it's still a huge energy output, and vocally
you have to be,
is
and
very demanding.
your cardio has to be such that you can still maintain a pressurized breath center while running up and down stairs or whatever. So, and stamina, that's the one that goes, is like, you might be able to get through that first song, but can you get through the 2.5-hour show 8 times a week? That's their animal entirely.
Yeah. Broadway performers are really elite athletes, and in their own right.
That's
vocal athletes.
It depends on the role.
At least vocal athlete.
This role, I kind of stand there and just pose and sing. So.
Yeah, but you're in a leotard, so.
But I am an
added level of difficulty there.
Yes.
That bumps it up a couple points at least.
A couple, totally.
Yes. Do you remember, when did you hear that you were coming back?
Our producers have been extraordinary in how much they've kept us in the loop, and how honest they've been with us. It's like everyone knew the answer. Like when they were saying that we were coming back in May, there wasn't anyone who was like, maybe, but our producers were like, we're saying May, earliest is going to be September, and Andrew Lloyd Webber himself paid for 16 weeks of insurance for a member, every permanent employee of the Phantom of the Opera, so that we wouldn't lose our health insurance.
Wow.
So that's pretty amazing. So we got an email one day that said, we finally have good news for you. There's a Zoom meeting tomorrow night. Please come. And it was nothing but positive. It's all very scary, and no one knows what to expect coming up. But everyone's heart is in the right place. The fact that they that they hired the entire cast. They could have like, I don't know, taken an opportunity to, like, if there was salaries they wanted to reduce or whatever,
people.
and no one would have like called the foul, because everyone has to, like the West End version cut half the orchestra, so I was sort of expecting something like that, and they were like, no, this is the longest running show in Broadway history. We're not going down like that. We're going to open it up again exactly as it was, and we're going to do our best. So
that's amazing.
It like gives me goosebumps.
I know.
Yeah, I can't. I suppose you haven't started rehearsals yet, but like, what's the vibe in New York right now, or the Broadway community, that like things are finally happening and we're starting to promote that you're coming back and you're getting ready? You're going on your pancake fast. Like, what's the vibe right now?
I don't know about the vibe in the theater community, because I don't really feel like I'm necessarily like in the theater community right now. I don't really see that many people. I see a handful of people, but it's not the same feeling as when you're like actually in the thick of it. But but the vibes in New York itself are definitely bubbly, which is, it was definitely like wet blanket for a long time, and like
So
especially
sad.
like Midtown and the Broadway area was so depressing. But now it's popping a little bit, and people are excited, and it's pride, and everybody is they didn't get pride last year, and so there's a lot of energy ready to pop.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
So our podcast is Arts for the Health of It. We're part of an arts and health program serving patients and caregivers here in San Antonio and around the country. And so we believe in, we see every day the healing power that the arts have, how necessary it is for our holistic well-being, for our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, our communal health. I wonder if you could share a little bit about your personal relationship with the arts and the role it's played in your health and well-being, and then maybe a little bit about how you see it impacts the community and the people you serve, because really that's what you do when you get on stage. You're serving your audience. You're providing that moment away from their everyday life, and that has an impact.
Yeah. I mean, the unique thing about theater is it's a temporary bit of beauty. It doesn't exist past you leaving the theater, except in your memory and your heart. And Mike Nichols, who directed Spamalot, he's my favorite quote about the nature of live theater. He said, live theater is an unspoken conversation between the audience and the actors on stage that goes, actors, you know how people are like this? Audience, yes, we know how people are like this. And I think that's the miracle of theater, is that there is this, there is a collective consciousness that it forms in a theater, and it reveals itself in a laugh, or in a tear, or in applause, or silence. And it's this moment, where the other great quote he had about an audience is, individually they know nothing, collectively they know everything. And I think that the miracle that happens is that in that moment, when an audience feels something or senses something that is like truth, that is an understanding of the human condition, that that telepathically we respond to each other in an agreement, and that agreement comes out as a laugh, or and in that moment you are not so alone. And you can sit in an audience with Republican, Democrat, and our collective experience as human beings is similar, and you only experience that in theater, so in that live performance. And there is a healing nature to that, and it can heal like a world. I think that understanding that, like, just innately, instinctually, we all recognize truth, and we all recognize like something extremely specific about the human condition together. And it's peace. There's peace in that. So I think that's what Are
you also crying? Okay, good. Yes! I didn't know it was just me. All right, I was like, don't wipe.
If you're not watching,
control
we're all
yourself.
Crying.
Yeah.
Because I love that in your pre-interview form, one of the questions we ask everybody who's coming on is, what's your association with arts and health? And your answer was, I don't know. And I was like, come on. And then that's the answer you give us to the question in real life. And we're like, no, we're sobbing like a bunch of babies. Okay. So your next...
It's so beautiful. And I love the theater because it's the culmination and highest form of so many different art forms, right? You have the music, you have so many things. You have the music, you have the writing, you have the scenes and the set, you have the costumes, you have dance, you have acting, you have directing and lighting design, and it's this just even in the holistic nature of the type of diverse community that has to come together to create a piece of theater, is this microcosm of just love and beauty in itself. And then to get to share that every night with the audience. See, I'm gonna cry more.
I know.
And then you're kind of inviting the audience into that community and that relationship that's already happening.
Yeah. And the community that's backstage is made up of designers, and made up of musicians, and made up of actors, and made up of technicians, and made up of management. And like, you know, we create this, like this little biosphere of a world, and then we invite all the audience into it. And it's a wonderful shared experience of just love and you know, just wanting everything to be okay for everybody.
So I just moved into a new studio. This is the first interview I'm filming in this new studio, and now I need to write down buy tissue.
Yeah.
That's what I need here. Apparently, it's what I'm missing.
So
yeah, it is. It's,
hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was just gonna say, I went to this. They were having these Broadway pop-up events, which is just like, and they would invite some people, just like 100 people from the theater community, like privately, and you go to a theater and they do some sort of performance. And so I got invited to one at the Broadway theater, and you know, we're all sitting like, you know, 3 rows and away from each other, and the lights went down, and like I had to like hold my face because I was like sobbing so hard, you know, and like the entire audience was the same way. It's like what we've lost is immeasurable, you know, and what we have to gain is immeasurable.
So I think I'm gonna put you on the spot here a little bit, Bradley. I think the types of stories we tell in theater, and like you say, like the reflecting back of ourselves and that recognition that happens in theater can be so healing and profound. What stories are on Broadway right now that you really connect with and you think are so important? And then what stories might you want to see more of?
Yeah, I think that radical inclusion is going to be the motor that drives Broadway. I hope it's the motor that drives Broadway. And it encourages young people of all races and creeds and orientations to consider it as a possibility. And I guess you only do that. I guess you can only do that if you see someone like yourself who's there in a successful position, you know. And so I hope that the pendulum continues its swing in that direction, and I think it will. You know, it has the potential. Theater has the potential to be such a great equalizer. You know, seeing stories, you know, whether they're stories you've heard before or they're new stories that cross racial lines and you know, all other sort of, and you know, any other sort of marginalized group is brought into downstage center. So I'm quite certain that will be a thrust going forward, and I believe it deserves to be.
Good, that's awesome.
I mean, I think that you answered it multiple times, but like, what are you most excited about going back?
I think just being back and part of that family. You know, it really is a family, and you know, it's strange being a theater artist because you go to Fort Worth, Texas, or you know, wherever you go, and you have 3 weeks of sometimes like really like intensely beautiful experience where you're speaking a creative language with this group of people, and you know, then you never see them again.
Then you leave.
Then you leave, and that's it. I mean, I saw you 7 years ago. right? So and your brain kind of gets used to that. Your brain gets used to being like, this is my family, and then it's not, and you get good with being okay with that. Phantom's a different story. I mean, I've only been there for 5 months, but there are people that have been there. There are dressers that have been there since it opened. There's a couple of cast members who've been there for over 20 years. So that really is a family. And there's nothing like that feeling of being part of a group like that. And it's so much joy in it, and just being part of that Broadway community, being part of that strange little like 14 blocks, where you just like you're going to your show and you're walking past people going to their show. You're like, have a good show, and you go do your show, and then you go, it's a lovely life, and I can't wait to get back to it.
Well, we can't wait for you to get back to it too, and all the rest of Broadway and theaters around the country. I know I'm very much looking forward to getting back to see live theater. So
yeah, right on.
It's truly what I miss the most. Yes. Tell everybody again when it opens and what theater it's at and how they can get tickets besides the first 2 days.
Yeah. We open on October 22nd. Probably going to be doing not an 8-show week at first. It'll probably be like more like 6 or 7. And you get tickets at telecharge. That's it.
And how can people follow you, Bradley, if they want to learn more about you or maybe take a voice lesson with you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. You can look me up. My website is bradleydean.net, and my social handles on Insta and Facebook are the Broadway Dean, which is that my nickname is Broadway Dean, which is a really cool nickname, but not for the reason that you think. I was doing Man Mancha. And the guy who was working the door had this accent, and so he would always say like, "Broadway Dean, you have visitors," and so that cast started calling me Broadway Dean, and that kind of stuck.
That's so awesome.
That's so awesome. Well, I can't. Oh, sorry. Go.
No, it just was so good to see you again, and thank you so much for coming and talking with us, and giving us your perspective on Broadway returning. This is awesome.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Go to heartsneedart.org, click on the podcast link. We'll throw the link to get tickets to Phantom in there and everything to connect with Bradley. Thank you so much for sitting down with us and chatting.
Thank you. See you at the Majestic.
Yes.
We'll be there.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to Arts for the Health of It, a podcast produced by Hearts Need Art, creative support for patients and caregivers, in partnership with the National Organization for Arts and Health. You can help others learn about the healing power of the arts by subscribing, sharing, and reviewing the podcast wherever you listen or watch. The podcast is hosted by Richard Wilmore, co-hosted by Constanza Rader. Our theme song, Songbird, is written and performed by Natalie Lane. Visit heartsneedart.org to learn how you can support our mission to create joy with people facing life-altering health challenges. Join us next week to learn more ways you can create arts for the health of it. The views expressed on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Hearts Need Art, their staff, board members, or other affiliates. All content is created for informational purposes only. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice or to diagnose and treat any health condition. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health professional with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast.